Okay, so this video we're going to talk about the next stage in your mask making. So since our last video, I've worked a little bit on smoothing out some of those volumes that we've created, making those smooth transitions from the brow line and the cheekbone and chin and all those things. So again, remember those can all be continued to be refined and worked on. So at this point I'm happy with it, but I might decide to alter that later. Okay, so at this point I'm going to start adding my facial features and some of the finer details of my mask. Up until this point, you probably could have gotten away with not knowing exactly where your concept was going, but now we really need to know. So if you haven't really defined that yet, if you're not clear on the concept and what sort of visual imagery you're going to use, now is the time, because you really have to know to give yourself a good direction here. I would also say before we start to add our facial features, there's some good resources for you. I'm going to demo more realistic or to scale sort of facial features, but again, you might decide to exaggerate. You might decide to add a bird's beak for your nose, right? So you don't have to do the things I'm going to show you, but I did want to show you those basics, okay? Some other resources I would suggest to you is we do have some mirrors. Having these at your table, right? You can like see yourself and make sure you're on the right track. I have a bunch of these printouts of different facial features, and so I always think it is more exciting if you go with something a little bit more dynamic than just a resting normal face. I think that's kind of our first impulse, is just to do straight ahead, eyes straight open, nose, mouth, whatever. But if we decide to use some expression with the eyebrows, maybe the face is tilted in some way, the mouth is open in some way, that always gives the mask a little more character. You also have people sitting all around you, so you can like creepily look at them to see what a nose looks like or an eye looks like. That's always kind of nice. Or just take photos of yourself. Go out in the hallway, snap a few photos of your face in different expressions. That's a great resource. But I would say have some resource that you're relying on. It's a little bit hard to just rely on like, oh, that looks pretty good. Have something that you can rely on, okay? So I'm gonna get the camera resituated and then we'll start with our demo. Whoa, this will work, right? I have my mirror here so I can kind of talk to you and you can see my mask at the same time. All right, so again, you can see my facial features are rather smoothed out, still not perfectly refined. That's gonna continue to occur as I continue to sculpt. So I always, whenever I start with facial features, I start with the nose. That to me is a good anchor point, right? Everything kind of builds off the nose, but that's really the central sort of anchor of the face, okay? And so again, I'm kind of mapping it out. It's going to be in about this region here. Okay, so let's get started. Grab my clay. Again, I don't need too much, but we'll start with that. All right. Again, I am attaching clay now to my mask, so I need to score. This clay has been setting up for a bit, so it is a little bit more stiff, so I'm going to have to score and definitely use some moisture. So when I think about this also, I really think about where's the nose placed. And really your nose transitions really nicely into your brow line. And so I'm going to do some smoothing even up into my brow line here. So I'm going to score all the way down here. So my nose area is scored. Size is going to be dependent on what you want to do, but let's just start with about this much. Okay, so my clay is already wedged. I've done that. I do that before I start working. I just keep it in some plastic to the side. Okay, now I'm going to start to just give my nose a general shape. I like to start with a teardrop shape or a raindrop shape. Okay, so it does have less volume towards the top, and then at the bottom is where most of the volume of our nose is. All right, and just a rough sort of test. I can just set it on my face. Give it a quick look. That feels a little bit big to me for what I want to do, so I'll just kind of reshape it. And this should feel very familiar to most of you. In 3D1, we did our identity bust sculptures, and so I demonstrated the same technique, and so this should look fairly familiar. Okay, that feels a bit better as far as a mass. Okay, so I have scored here. I'm gonna just really quickly score the back of my nose area. And again, making some decisions about if I should use some water or slip. At this point, my mask is a little bit more stiff, so I'm going to use some slip. Let's see if I have a brush. There's a brush. The key with this, though, is I just want to use a little bit. I don't want to use a lot. I tend to find that if I use a lot of slip, my clay gets really slippery, and then it's harder for me to control. So I'm just going to use a little slip right here. All right, so placing the nose in the general area, and then I want to start in the center and kind of connect out. So I'm giving some pressure down right in the middle here, and I'm just compressing, compressing, compressing. Okay, now here's where I really want to start to define the eye sockets and work the nose into the brow line. Okay, so I'm just going to start pinching the side here, and I think I have too much clay, but I'm going to take some of that off. And so see how I'm connecting it to the eye sockets here, and I'm just going to start smoothing it in to the side. Okay, and I'm kind of pushing some of that excess clay up. I don't think I'm going to need all of that. Okay, and then I want to think about focusing on smoothing it into the brow line. Again, I have some excess clay. I'm just wiping that away. You know, a common mistake I see is that we don't smooth this nose into the brow line enough, and then you have like this funky like nose line, brow line, or a forehead, and that looks pretty funky too. So again, it's a smooth transition from nose to forehead. Okay, now this looks a little Squidward-y at this point, but here's where the magic happens of the nose. Okay, when I think about the nose, I think about 3 spheres. You probably heard me say this or remember me saying this from 3D1. There's really 3 spheres of your nose. All right, I'm gonna kind of tuck in here. Okay, so there's this sphere right in the front of my nose, this ball right in the front, and then there's 2 spheres on the side. Okay, so when I go to sculpt the bottom of my nose, I think about those 3 spheres. Okay, and how I want to do that, I'm going to use these 4 fingers, my thumb and my index finger. My thumbs are my nostrils, my index finger's up here. I'm kind of squeeze my nostrils down and into the face. Okay, and I'm trying to define those 3 spheres. Don't be shy with your nostrils. They do go up into your head pretty high. Okay, but we want to keep this, what's that middle part of your nose called? I don't know. Septum? I should learn these things. Okay, really keeping this definition on the side of our nose. Because when I do look at the side, this line here, it's pretty drastic, it's pretty dramatic. The plane change is really severe from my cheek to my nose. So when I do go to the side now, I really want to define that. Okay, make sure that's a nice dramatic shift from cheek to nose. I'm going to do the same thing over here. Remember, there's kind of this sphere on the side of our nose. Okay, so I kind of use my nails to define those areas. Okay, now here's where I would just do my refining, okay? Make sure I'm going to look at this plane, make sure I'm happy with that. I'm going to look at it from this angle, make sure I'm happy with that. Look at it from all your angles and continue to refine. Okay, so that's our basic nose shape, just like that. Okay, all right. Let's see. I'm gonna pause the video here. I'm gonna let you work on that. Again, that's the first stage. In the next video, I'm gonna show you how I do a basic eye and mouth. Okay.